Black pilot told to wait outside by airline staff minutes later. She shuts the entire company down. It was a cold December morning at the headquarters of Meridian Airlines, and Captain Maya Daniels was walking through the terminal with a sense of calm and confidence that had taken her years to build. With over 15,000 hours of flight time under her belt, she had seen it all from military transport flights to navigating stormy weather across the globe. Little did she know that day would mark a pivotal moment in her career, one that would change the airline industry forever. As she made her way to the crew lounge to grab a coffee before briefing for her first flight, as a senior captain, the last thing she expected was a challenge that would threaten not only her career, but the safety protocols of an entire airline. This story immediately grabbed my attention because it highlights a significant problem within professional industries: discrimination and systemic bias. Maya Daniels' story is not only inspiring, but also serves as a powerful example of how integrity can break barriers and expose corruption. Her experience is a harsh reminder of how corporate cultures sometimes devalue experience, competence, and safety in favor of outdated traditions and biases. The morning that would change everything, Maya Daniels had always been told. She flew like she was born with wings. But on this fateful morning, at Meridian Airlines headquarters, those wings were clipped by 7 words that would alter the trajectory of her career and life. "Captain Daniels, we need you to wait outside." She had been looking forward to her first flight as a senior captain at one of the most prestigious airlines in the country, but now she was being told to wait outside for reasons that made no sense. Her qualifications were impeccable. Maya had flown into San Francisco International Airport more than 70 times and handled challenging approaches in severe weather conditions. The request to wait outside was not only insulting, but felt deeply unjust. Maya had fought hard to get where she was, and yet here she was, dismissed without explanation. This moment struck me because it highlights a broader issue many people face, especially women and minorities in professional fields, being questioned or undermined for reasons that have little to do with their competence. I've often wondered how many stories like Maya's go untold, where talented individuals are unfairly sidelined because of biases ingrained in institutional structures. The shift in the room. As Maya walked out of the briefing room, she could feel all eyes on her. The sudden shift in the room's energy was palpable. It wasn't just the discomfort of her being unfairly singled out, but the sense of isolation that came with it. The whispers and curious glances from her colleagues felt like a weight on her shoulders. This wasn't the first time Maya had faced discrimination, but this time, it was calculated, systematic. After a few moments, her co-pilot, James Chen, emerged to explain what had transpired behind closed doors. He shared that they had been told the decision to reassign her had nothing to do with her qualifications, but was a matter of experience. Despite her extensive background, including military service and handling turbulent weather, she was being forced to shadow another flight. Maya's situation brings to light a critical question about systemic practices in corporate America. When will companies stop using tradition as an excuse to exclude diverse voices? In my opinion, what Maya faced was not an isolated incident, but part of a larger trend where tradition becomes a tool for preserving outdated, discriminatory practices that harm both the individuals and the companies involved. The fight within, Maya could have immediately filed a formal complaint, but she chose to hold off, not wanting to immediately brand herself as a troublemaker. However, as she went through the motions, her anger only grew. She knew this wasn't just about her. It was about a culture that perpetuated systemic discrimination under the guise of professionalism. It wasn't long before Maya realized the extent of the problem at Meridian. The airline had a long history of discrimination lawsuits, which were settled quietly, and a management team overwhelmingly white and male. The company's culture was toxic, with old boys networks holding too much power, and employees feared retaliation for raising concerns. Maya's decision to not immediately fight back is an interesting one. It reflects the kind of strategic thinking many individuals in marginalized groups must employ. Sometimes, confronting injustice head-on isn't the best option because it can have serious repercussions. Instead, Maya's patience and methodical approach remind me of the importance of gathering all the facts, preparing thoroughly, and picking the right moment to take a stand. Maya's persistence paid off when she began researching the airline more thoroughly. What she uncovered was deeply troubling. Meridian had cut corners on maintenance and put pressure on its employees to ignore safety issues. For the sake of profits, maintenance logs were falsified, and planes with known defects were allowed to fly. But the most disturbing discovery was how employees who spoke up were silenced or punished, their careers destroyed. The tipping point came when Maya discovered that the FAA had been investigating Meridian Airlines. Due to discrepancies in its maintenance procedures, the company's safety records were anything but exemplary, and their traditional ways were beginning to show cracks. As a consumer, I often wonder what goes on behind the scenes at major corporations. Maya's findings were an eye-opener, but unfortunately, they're not uncommon. Too many companies prioritize profits over people, often at the expense of safety and well-being. This is why we need more whistleblowers like Maya, people who refuse to turn a blind eye and who are willing to expose the truth, no matter the cost. Despite being repeatedly sidelined, Maya eventually got a chance to take charge of a flight. However, as she examined the plane, she discovered discrepancies in the maintenance logs that had been intentionally overlooked. This was at the moment when Maya knew she could no longer stay silent. She delayed the flight to ensure the plane was properly inspected, knowing it would be a career-risking move. Her actions caught the attention of senior executives, who quickly summoned her for a meeting. It was clear they were angry, but Maya stood her ground. She refused to ignore safety issues, even if it meant her job was on the line. Her courage to challenge the status quo was the beginning of her showdown with the company. Maya's unwavering stance on safety reflects the importance of leadership in times of crisis. It's easy to go along with the flow, but true leaders stand up for what's right, even when the consequences are personal. Maya's decision to delay the flight wasn't just about the aircraft, it was about sending a message that safety and integrity cannot be compromised no matter the situation. The unraveling of Meridian Airlines. Maya's confrontation with Meridian Airlines escalated when she began collecting evidence of the company's unsafe practices. She worked tirelessly, compiling testimonies and documents that exposed the airline's systemic issues. When the company's leaders threatened her career, Maya took a bold step. She submitted a detailed report to the FAA, backed up by employees' testimonies, maintenance records, and her own findings. Soon, the Chicago Tribune picked up the story, and Meridian Airlines was thrust into the public eye. What followed was nothing short of a corporate disaster. Meridian's fleet was grounded, their stock price plummeted, and the FAA launched a full-scale investigation into the airline's practices. The company was forced to shut down operations. This part of the story is a powerful reminder of how whistleblowers can turn the tide in favor of justice. Maya's decision to gather evidence, confront the company publicly, and alert the FAA was the catalyst for change. Her bravery didn't just save lives, it exposed the systemic problems that had been festering for years. A new beginning. Maya's actions led to a wave of change in the airline industry. Other airlines began implementing stricter safety audits, focusing on diversity, and ensuring whistleblower protections. Maya's career, once seemingly on the brink of collapse, flourished. She received offers from several major airlines and eventually became a prominent voice in the industry, advocating for safety, equality, and corporate accountability. She also became a mentor, helping to shape the next generation of pilots, particularly those from underrepresented backgrounds. Her legacy was one of courage, integrity, and unwavering commitment to making the skies safer for everyone. Maya's story is a testament to the power of individual action. It's easy to feel powerless in the face of corporate giants, but Maya showed that one person armed with integrity and determination can bring about change. Her story is a call to action for all of us to challenge the status quo, speak up against injustice, and fight for what's right, no matter the odds. Maya Daniels' journey is far from over. As she continues to navigate her career, she remains a symbol of resilience and justice in the face of adversity. Her story serves as a reminder that sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is refuse to wait for permission to do what's right. Change, like the sky, is vast and ever-expanding. Maya's courage has shown that no matter how high the stakes, there's always room for someone brave enough to soar higher. The skies, after all, belong to all of us no matter who we are or where we come from. And Maya Daniels? She's a shining example of what can happen when we refuse to let others clip our wings. Undercover boss gets insulted in her own showroom. Her shocking response will leave you speechless. She walked into the room, her heart racing. She wasn't just a victim. She wasn't just a woman. She was about to change everything. But she had to do it quietly. She had to do it on her terms. Meet Sophia Alexander, a woman who had spent her life fighting battles that others didn't even know existed. As the CEO of one of the largest tech startups in the world, Sophia had earned her place at the top through years of hard work, strategic thinking, and unbreakable determination. But as the sun set behind the towering glass walls of her office, she found herself in the middle of a battle far more dangerous than any she had ever fought. It wasn't about numbers, investors, or even the competition. It was about the very system that had built the empire she now commanded. A system of privilege, corruption, and hidden bias that controlled everything from the way customers were treated to how employees were promoted. The truth was, Sophia had built a multi-billion-dollar company that was supposed to stand for innovation, equality, and progress. But it had become just like all the other corporations she had once vowed to change. The first crack in the perfect image. Sophia Alexander had always believed that hard work and determination could overcome any obstacle. She had grown up with nothing, and through sheer grit, built a company that would change the tech industry forever. From the outside, everything about Alextech was perfect. Sleek products, glowing reviews, and a reputation for innovation. But as she sat in her office late one evening, her gaze fixed on the email in front of her, a gnawing sense of dread settled in her chest. The email was from one of her longtime friends and investors, Daniel Reed. "Sophia, I know how much you care about equality and diversity, but something's wrong. I've been hearing troubling reports about how your employees are being treated, especially those from minority backgrounds. People are being sidelined, underpaid, and overlooked for promotions. Some employees have even said they feel like their careers are at a standstill because of their race. I don't want to alarm you, but this is starting to spread across the industry. Please look into this. Daniel." Sophia's mind raced. She thought back to the countless hours spent in board meetings and strategy sessions. Her commitment to building a company where everyone, regardless of background, had an equal opportunity to succeed. But in the back of her mind, she couldn't ignore the subtle whispers that had started to surface. Employees in lower-level positions, clients from minority backgrounds, everyone had begun to point out something disturbing. Discrimination. She had always believed she could control the narrative. She had fought to create a company that was diverse, inclusive, and progressive. But now, this letter exposed a truth she had been too busy to see. Sophia couldn't let it go. She had to know the truth. She booked a flight to San Francisco, where Alextech's headquarters was located. The plan was simple: infiltrate her own company and witness firsthand how things were operating on the ground. She would see how the employees were being treated, whether they felt the pressure of the corporate machine, and if the problems Daniel spoke about were as widespread as he'd claimed. When she arrived at the office the next day, she had done everything to blend in. No extravagant outfits, no designer labels. She was dressed casually in jeans and a black jacket, walking through the lobby as just another potential employee. As she walked past the receptionist, she noticed something that caught her eye. A young black woman was sitting across the desk, visibly uncomfortable as the receptionist spoke to her in a cold tone. Sophia recognized her immediately. She was Tasha Williams, an up-and-coming software engineer, one of the company's brightest stars. But from the look on her face, Sophia could tell that Tasha was being given the cold shoulder. Sophia felt a pang of regret. She had personally mentored Tasha years ago, but now it seemed that no amount of her influence could change the reality of the corporate culture. Sophia didn't confront the receptionist immediately. Instead, she watched from a distance as the employees around her seemed to dismiss Tasha without even realizing it. It wasn't blatant racism, but it was subtle enough that most of the company's leadership would dismiss it as coincidence. But Sophia knew better. As she walked through the office, it became clear that the disparity wasn't just in customer service, it was in everything. Promotion rates were skewed. Mentorship opportunities were given to the same handful of people. And when it came to pay equality, the company's practices were starting to raise serious concerns. Sophia couldn't ignore what she was seeing. She had to act. She knew that by exposing this, she would be challenging the very structure that had allowed her to climb to the top. But she also knew that facing the truth was the only way to change the system. Taking action, the first step was to confront the problem head-on. Sophia called Daniel and requested a meeting with the leadership team that afternoon. She didn't want to do this quietly anymore. She had to force change from within. In the meeting, she laid it all on the table. The racial bias, the salary disparities, the lack of opportunity for minority employees. She had the data, the evidence, and the support of a growing number of employees who were ready to speak up. It wasn't just Tasha, it was everyone who had been marginalized by the system. Sophia herself had helped build. Her colleagues were shocked. They had always viewed Alextech as a progressive company. But now, Sophia was asking them to face the reality that their diversity policies weren't working. And if they didn't act, they would risk losing everything they had worked for. The fight for reform. Sophia didn't just want to expose the problem. She wanted to reform the system. But reform was not easy. It was not enough to simply change policies. She had to confront the deeply ingrained power structures that had kept the status quo intact for so long. She started with the leadership. Everyone at the top had to answer for the inequality that existed. She asked for full transparency on employee treatment, salary discrepancies, and promotion records. She demanded that the company invest in training programs that would address racial bias. At every level, the leadership team was divided. Some of them wanted to keep things as they were, the status quo had served them well. But others saw the writing on the wall. If they didn't change, they would lose their credibility. As Sophia navigated the internal politics of Alextech, the media began to pick up on the story. Word spread about her fight for change. It wasn't just about racial equality, it was about the very future of the tech industry. Sophia knew that corporate reform couldn't happen in a vacuum. If she was going to make a real difference, she had to expose the company's failures to the public. She organized a press conference, inviting investors, journalists, and tech influencers to attend. When she stood in front of the cameras, Sophia didn't just speak about racial inequality. She spoke about injustice, about the systemic biases that existed in every corner of the corporate world. She laid out the evidence, the salary gaps, the promotion records, the countless instances where employees of color were overlooked, despite having the same qualifications as their white counterparts. This isn't just about Alextech, she said. This is about the entire industry. It's about the future of tech, and whether we are willing to create a space where everyone can thrive, regardless of the color of their skin. The room was silent. The press was ready to ask questions, but Sophia's words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of truth. As expected, the backlash was swift. Critics claimed that Sophia was using the issue of race and privilege as a way to consolidate her own power within the company. Articles appeared questioning whether Sophia's motivations were truly about equality, or if she was simply using the issue to shift the balance of power in her favor. But Sophia didn't back down. She knew that exposing the truth meant taking on the industry, and she was ready for the fight. She didn't just want to be heard, she wanted to create a company that walked the talk. Sophia knew that change wasn't instant, but she was willing to make the necessary sacrifices to ensure that her company became a true leader in diversity. Months passed, and change started to happen. Alextech implemented new diversity initiatives. Promotions and raises were now based on merit, not bias. Employees from every background were being recognized for their contributions, and mentorship programs were open to everyone, regardless of race. But the real victory came when Tasha Williams, the young engineer who had once been sidelined, was promoted to a senior leadership position. She wasn't the only one. Employees of color who had long been overlooked were now being elevated to positions of power and influence. Sophia stood at the helm, guiding her company through the storm. She knew that the work wasn't finished. The road to real change would take time. But for the first time, she could see a future where everyone had an equal chance to succeed. The lesson: Sophia's journey wasn't easy. It was filled with challenges, both personal and professional. But the lesson here is clear. Change requires courage. It takes more than just words, it takes action, conviction, and the willingness to stand up even when the world tries to silence you. Sophia's story isn't just about corporate reform, it's a reminder that sometimes the most important battles aren't fought with power or wealth. They're fought with truth, integrity, and the courage to speak up when everyone else is too afraid to do so. What would you do if you were in Sophia's shoes? Would you stand up for what's right, even when the system is against you? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to share this story, it might just inspire someone else to fight for the change the world needs. Thanks for watching, and remember, change begins with one person and it starts with you.